Welcome to our Business Mastermind. Our subject today is strategic spontaneity, creating a sound enough business foundation to turn on a dime if you need to. These two words don't usually go together. Strategy and spontaneity seem kind of counter to one another. The idea is that we are actually strategically planning for sudden change all the time, because it's what we can count on, isn't it? So I want to remind you that you are welcome to take notes and gather as much information as you need, but also remember that on the Unity South Central website, we'll be placing both the recording of this presentation as well as the slides. So you'll be able to go back in and use these, look at them if you want to share this presentation with your board or with another minister in your organization. You are welcome to do that. So what does it mean to turn on a dime? It's a cliche that comes out of the 1800s and speaks to a short turning radius. How quickly you could turn your horse, actually, is what it was about. How quickly can we turn? Can we turn in that small space? A dime is the smallest piece of money that we have. Can we turn in that short radius? When something is up and we need to do things without dumping over the apple cart, as I mix my cliches. Can we do that without causing so much trauma in our organization that what seems like a small change to us is upsetting in a way that causes us to deal with that change much longer than we needed to? Have we prepared our community to understand that change is part of any community? It's going to come up regularly. So let's look at some of the things that cause us to need to change. First of all, change happens when we have growth. Growth-induced changes can be when you have more people coming into your community. Yay, we're happy, more people are showing up, and suddenly we can't fit them all in the sanctuary, and we have to decide if we're going to have 2 services. This is a great problem to have. It also can really be a hard one on the community because they're used to all being in the same room together. They don't want to have the community split. They might not get to see their friends if their friends have a choice in coming at a later or earlier time. Another thing that can happen is financially induced changes. Most often those happen when we see a reduction in financial support. We lose a major contributor. We are in an economic crisis. Anything that causes us to reevaluate what funds we have available to support our community. We also see this around staff changes. A minister retires or moves to a different church. A well-loved receptionist, office manager, business manager, or bookkeeper moves on for one reason or another. Or often it can happen that we as leaders have to terminate employment for someone. And that can be really tough on a community because we can't always tell the community why. We can't always we can say that this person was terminated for cause, but we can't really always go into the details because we have professional ways of operating. So these kinds of changes are predictable changes that could come up for any of us in the future. Other changes that might affect us are things like location changes. So maybe you love your building and you're renting it and the owner says they're going to do something different. Maybe your building is too big. Maybe your building is too small. Maybe it's time to sell your building because it's not meeting your needs anymore. Or, heaven forbid we have one of those crisis moments where you're caught in a tornado and your building gets knocked down, your building catches on fire. I've seen that happen with a couple of churches where there has been a major catastrophe. These changes cause us to change everything about how we do what we do. And they're turn on a dime changes, aren't they? They happen overnight. This is especially these crisis changes. We have to be prepared to step in and have our community understand we're not the building. This community has never been and never will be the building. This community is something else. Procedural changes are the things that we run into most often. Oh, we're going to change the direction we move cars through the parking lot. Disaster. I tried to do that one time. Craziness. Doesn't seem like it would be that big a deal. It is a huge deal. And then evolutionary changes are kind of the ones that we deal with all the time. We reevaluate our mission statement. We reevaluate our vision. We decide as a community that we want to change our sanctuary. We want to update something. We want to remove some kind of insignia that's been on the building for a long time, or we want to add something. These kinds of changes, all of us have experienced and will continue to experience. So these things affect the people and the processes and the tools that we use to move through whatever the change happens to be. So here's the starting point. I want you to ask yourself today, how much conversation do you have around change as part of your leadership? How often do you address the subject of change in a way that prepares the people that you serve for the fact that change is the one thing you can count on? It's the one thing you can count on in life. Things are going to change. We just went through a major pandemic. We're not out of it yet. Things have changed and changed and changed and changed again as a result of that. Right now, the economy is, according to at least what we see on the news, is not looking great. That will cause some changes, won't it? We can predict that. We can look in, we can affirm that we are healthy, strong, and capable, and also be wise in our observation of what's going on around us by preparing our communities for the fact that change will come all the time. And so in our affirmation of our communities, it's important to help them understand if we want to be a thriving community, we must be willing to change. How prepared are we for that? Are we our building? Are we our staff? Are we what happens in fellowship on Sunday? Who are we as a community? And were we to make a major change, how would we move through that? And so even as you're talking about your mission and your vision, which we are now learning to do and have been encouraged to do more and more, to speak into not only our own mission, but the bigger unity mission. As we speak to our mission, are we speaking about the fact that we are powerful change makers in the world? You, my community, you are powerful change makers in the world. You have the capacity because you are led and guided by the Spirit of Holy, the presence that is you as you. You are moving through times of change in powerful and amazing ways. And what we need in the world right now is what you bring forward. A willingness to make change, a willingness to be guided by the divine heart, to move forward in a changing way, in a changing world. This directive in your narrative is so valuable when you get to the change where you have to turn it on a dime, because you're telling them all along, you're affirming who they are, that they are change making, they're powerful change makers, and that they are ready for change when it comes up. So what will come up in their mind when there's a change? Oh yeah, we have been prepared for this. Our theology, our bringing forward of divine presence allows us to move through change more effectively. We are better prepared for it. This narrative is completely in your control. And it's an important thing to think about incorporating as you move forward, because we know the power of our affirmative statements. We know that as we affirm, the doors open in the world of spirit for what we're affirming to be present. So if we know the world is changing, and if we know we're going to confront change at some point, experience change is probably a better word, then let us prepare our people to understand that they're capable of change, probably more capable now after moving through COVID than they have ever been, because they've had so much change experience recently. So here are the things that will help you to plan ahead, so that when the change, the spontaneous change that causes you to turn on a dime shows up, what will you have done? Are you a good scout? What will you have done to get ready for the potential of change? Here are the things that can really help you. One is to develop a strong leadership culture, to really understand what happens for us so often as ministers. And this is probably one of the greatest learnings for me in my ministerial career, is that it's very easy to allow leadership decisions to completely drop on the minister's desk. It's very easy to pick up most of what needs to be done rather than working really closely with your board on the decision-making process. So that in the event that something unexpected happens, even for you as the spiritual leader, you feel confident that your board leadership could step in. Also, have you made connections with Unity Worldwide Ministries and developed connections with the region, so that if there were a leadership problem, a leadership shift, a leadership change, that you already know who to connect with for guidance on how to move through that? Have you put yourself in the place of having that information and having made contact with people? There are so many resources available to you, both in the region and at Unity Worldwide Ministries, in the form and shape of the people who are there, who can give guidance to the board if the board needs help. I have also seen it happen where there's a crisis on the board, and the leadership that you had from the board falls apart and you have to develop a new board. Again, Unity Worldwide Ministries and the region are both equipped to give you direction and assistance as you need it, to figure out, how do you get someone to consult with you to help you move through this. So developing a strong leadership culture is both developing the strength of your leadership and the strength of your board leadership. It's also developing the strength of your volunteer leadership. Can you pull your community together to make a change? Because there is a strong volunteer leader who is assisting in pulling the people together behind whatever it is that you need to do. These three branches of leadership are incredibly important: your ministers, your board, and your volunteer leaders. Developing that strong culture gives you those three categories of people who can all work together in the face of change, or who can take two of which can pick up if you lose one branch for some reason. So again, the conversation that you're having with your leadership about how you would handle change when it comes up, making sure that people feel prepared for whatever comes, and beginning your conversation. Often we see our boards change. They change every couple of years. Do you have conversations with your board about the fact that they are the change leaders of your community? That they are here, that boards always come in and look at things that they would like to adjust. And so let's have part of our training be around change. Let's really talk about the tools that we need and how each of us individually moves through change, and whether or not we're fearless in our ability to move forward. How can we be fearless and wise as we move forward as leaders? Another really important strategy for spontaneous change, to be prepared for spontaneous change when it happens, is to tie potential change back to your vision and mission. In order to move forward in a mission, you are constantly looking for what needs to be done to take the next step to improve what you're doing. And your vision is all about change, isn't it? Your vision is the statement your mission is the statement that says, this is what we're doing every day. Your vision is the statement that says, and this is what we want to accomplish. And when those two things are combined, they involve change. They involve evolution, new ways of being with one another. This is what we are trying to do. It's our why. It's the big why, and people will get behind your why. They will get behind it. So when you talk about your vision and mission, it's again an opportunity to talk about how in the process of this, some things evolve and change. Some traditions we hold to very strongly because they're so meaningful for us. And some things evolve and change as we live into our vision and mission. When you have that conversation about change, it's not such a surprise when change occurs. Every month in your organization, something shifts. Something changes. You decide to do something new. You decide not to do something old. Someone new joins you and brings a new skill. There is a new class offered. You do it in a different way. You decide to have an outside service when you usually have an inside service. You connect with a nonprofit somewhere and do new work. There is something changing, shifting, becoming every month in your community. This is another opportunity for your narrative to orient people towards the fact that you're changing. We did something new. It was a success. You guys are so good at making changes and doing something in a different way. You are powerful change makers. What a great thing. Look how this worked. It can be very small changes. Changes like, for example, we have included all of our announcements in the bulletin in a printed form, but the cost of paper has gone up 300%. So we have moved all our announcements to our website. And do you know our website growth this week was up 20%? You guys are amazing. You know, it seems like a small thing, but it's a big thing to shift your focus from having everything put in your hands to jumping online and checking the website. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your ability to move through these changes that are so good for our community. If you are in this kind of conversation on a regular basis, you are preparing your community to be so much more comfortable for bigger changes that occur. You're actually showing them that they can be successful at change. And this is, you're telling them the truth. You're not making up a story. Don't tell them if it's not successful. If everybody fell apart and nobody showed up because no one went to the website and checked for the announcements, do not make that a success story. Be honest. You have to know what areas you can put in front of them and what areas you can't. But when you have successes, be sure and remind them that they have made a successful change, so that they begin to believe in their ability to do it and begin to see how good it is for the community. If you have not gotten this message so far, what I'm saying is, in order to change on a dime, you have to communicate about change in a positive and empowering way. Transparency really matters. That you are transparent about the things, the small things that are shifting and how well they're working and what the outcome is. You have to explain your why. Why did we make this change? 300% increase in paper, that's why. Change in staff, that's why. Suggestion from Unity Worldwide Ministries, request from Unity Worldwide Ministries, in order to work more closely with sister communities around the United States. They need to know why you are changing. That is more important than anything else you can tell them. What is it that is motivating you to change? And if you can't clearly explain why, it's not time to change. If you don't have a good why for the change you're making, and it's a knee-jerk reaction, I'm going to change that so that never happens again. I'm never going to let that happen again. Wait a minute. Slow down. Take time. Breathe. Not every change has to happen on a dime. Even in those very quick, spontaneous decisions, ask yourself why. If you don't have your why, if your why is not, especially in a spontaneous moment, if your why is not clear and you can't open your mouth and articulate it, then wait to make the change, because you are not ready yet. it should not be a spontaneous change if you don't know exactly why you're making it. And you can't explain that to your community because they can't get behind it if it's just an executive decision. When it's an executive decision, it's done to them rather than done for them. When we can explain the why, we can say, this is why we're doing this for our community. If we can't explain the why, we don't have that ability. We're not ready for that spontaneous change. Remember when these things come up that you have tools. You know, we all talk to our communities about the tools that they have, the things that they need to use on a day-to-day basis to manage their lives and the things that we have available to us in our community. But when change happens spontaneously, it's often because something unexpected happened. And we can forget not only to use our tools, we can entirely forget we have them. So there is a moment, we are good at praying. We can pray quick. We can pray quick in that way that says, I settle myself in the wholeness of divine presence I am, and I bring forth wisdom into this situation. And when we do that, the spontaneous change ahead of us that usually is a little bit of a shock, somebody you really rely on is giving their notice. Something has happened to the building, someone has resigned from the board, whatever it is. When we come back and use our prayer and our affirmations to settle ourselves in the wisdom of divine presence we are, and we bring that forward before we do the next thing, it changes our state of being. It changes how our mind works because we are consciously prepared to come to our hearts, to live from our hearts, to lead, most importantly, from our divine presence, right? Collaborate with other leaders. Changing on a dime doesn't mean you had to do it like this. It might mean you have to do it over a week or a month, but it's unexpected change. So work with the other leaders on your team. You will have built them up, talk to them about what change is, made them prepared for change. The worst thing that you can do in that moment is to fail to involve them. Connect with them if it's appropriate. And again, we are bound by ethical laws that stop us from sharing why somebody left their job or why we had to terminate somebody. There are things that we cannot share, but we can call our leaders together and say, we're coming together as a team. There is a big change ahead of us. I'd like to get a little input from you because we'll need to do something pretty quickly. What thoughts do you have? How can you help with this process? Do you have any concerns we should know about? This empowers your leaders over and over. And all of us need to be prepared for the fact that anything could happen to us. Something could happen to us that would take us out of leadership. Could be a parent needing us, a child needing us, a health issue, all the things that are part of everyday life. If something happened to you today, is your leadership ready to step in? Could they do it? Now, will they do it? Yes. Will they do it even if they're not prepared? Yes. Can you make it easier for them by preparing them for change and practicing change as you go? By involving them in these conversations that help them to feel empowered in the community. By doing that, you build security for your entire community. Invite and inform. Invite people into the conversation. Make sure that your community is informed as you move through. Communicate, communicate, communicate. And as you communicate, make it about them. Remember that it may feel like it's happening to you. I have to leave because I have a very sick child. I can't be here. I have to leave on Monday. I'm taking a 3-month leave of absence. That's what's happening. They will care about you. Your job is to make it about them. I am leaving for 3 months. It's an urgent situation. I am so grateful to have this leadership team to move the community forward. You may not realize how strong you are or how capable you are, but I know that you can pick up this ball and run with it. And you can call me. I will continue to offer guidance. But we have worked on change, on sudden change, how we handle sudden change. And you are ready to do this. How much better can your community move forward, your leadership move forward, if they understand it's about them? This is your divine opportunity to step in, to work together, to collaborate, to bring the community through something it has not faced before. And you are ready to do that. This is why I named this lesson strategic spontaneity, because what you're really doing is thinking strategically ahead that you are going to have spontaneous change. It's going to come. So are you strategically prepared for when that spontaneous moment hits you? Now, when it does, you will have somebody who doesn't understand. You will have misunderstandings, because in those kind of urgent, adrenaline-filled moments when something goes forward, people have lots and lots of questions. They don't always pay attention well to what you're explaining. They don't always read what you've sent out. They don't always watch the videos. They don't always listen to what's being said from the pulpit, and they catch what they catch. And they make assumptions that are incorrect. So we have to look for that. We have to look first at the people who are upset about change and make sure they're not misunderstanding. I can tell you're feeling upset about this. Let's make sure we're on the same page first. What did you hear me say? What was the message you got? Tell me back what we're doing. Because they may tell you something that you're shocked about that has nothing to do, is not at all what you just were saying to them. They may not, everyone knows our building burned down on Sunday. We are going to have to find a new place to gather. I can see on your face that you're upset, Betty. What's the problem? I just heard that we're not going to gather again until we find another building. Not even close to what you said, right? Not even close. But their assumption is we can't gather if we don't have a building. So it's really important when someone is upset to get them to tell you what it is that they think you're doing. And make sure if they do understand and they're upset, then you can say, I totally understand why this upsets you. Let's go back over the whys. Here are the reasons why we're doing this. And if they're still upset, you can move them into conversation with the board. You can find another time to process. You can say, let's give it a week and let's come back and visit this and see how well it's working. This is what we're trying to begin. Stay with me on this and let me know if it doesn't work for you. Come back, let's talk about it. We can work through that if they understand. But if you're reading off two different sheets of music, there will be no harmony. You've got to make sure that they're understanding what you're presenting. Ask questions, invite feedback, survey your community when you make big change, because when they receive a written survey, you get a personal answer. And that's a very different thing than what you get when they are sitting around a table in fellowship hall or gathered together in the lobby and influenced by the conversation, by what other people are saying. Surveys are really, really powerful for getting a feel for what your community is enjoying, what they're not enjoying. And if you are uncertain about survey processes, go back into the archives of the Business Mastermind from last year. We talked extensively about surveys in one of those video series, and everything was recorded. So you can go back in and get some information about surveys and processes. Show people you care while you show them that you are courageous and confident, because fear is what stops people from wanting to move through change. They are fearful, they are worried, it doesn't feel comfortable to them. They've always done it this way. They're not sure they can learn the new way. They're not sure they're going to like the new way. So if you are courageous and confident, they can be anchored by you, because they believe in you. They are showing up on Sundays and in your community to hear what you have to say, to be led by you. They're showing up because you are there. They're showing up because there's a community of people they love. And they have every motivating factor available to want your community to thrive. It's why they're in the community. So you are ahead of the game by so much if you can be courageous and confident, even when people are unsure. And I think of this often. I've raised several children, and I think of this often with my kids when I have to say, yes, you have to go to the dentist. I know you're afraid. I'm going to go with you. You know what? I've been to the dentist before. You are afraid because you haven't experienced it. It's not so bad. You probably watched something that had you a little afraid, but I'm going to go with you and I'm going to introduce you to the dentist, and we're going to take this nice and slow. And it's the same thing with the people we serve. This is not to make them into children at all. It's to say we all need the same comfort and guidance from the people that we see as leaders. We need to know that our leaders are confident and that they are genuine in believing this next step is the right step. And when people have confidence in their leaders, they move through change more easily. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. This is such an important statement for us because we can get locked in so easily in looking at what's going wrong. And we can spend all of our time saying, do you guys want to stay stuck in this thing? Do you want to stay stuck in this place? Of course, we have to change. Let me show you all the things that are going wrong here. Our whys are all about what's going wrong. Whatever happened, whatever the actual incident is that motivated the change, that is the incident. This happened. And so we must create something better. Let's talk about what we're creating that's better. Let's put our focus on where we're going. Let's measure our ability to accomplish whatever this goal is. Our first step is a pretty quick turn. We can do this. We got this. We've been doing change for a long time, every single day, in all different parts of your life. We've been changing since we were infants. Some of the biggest changes in our life happened in our ability to go from having no control of our body to being able to walk. We took lots of tumbles when we did that. We are so equipped to change. We simply need to change our story about change. And this is my point for you in closing today. If you can prepare your community through your conversation to really understand that change is a step that we move through in life every single day, from the moment we take our first breath, from the moment we go from not breathing to breathing, all the way through to the moment that our soul exits this vehicle, we are changing every single day. It is the most consistent thing that we have in life. And if we can prepare our community to feel confident in their ability to make change, then we can make a change just like that because they're ready for it. If we never talk about that, if we fail to prepare them in advance, spontaneous change can be a major destruction in a community. It can cause all kinds of rifts. So we know they're going to come. We know that spontaneous change will be needed in our leadership role. I'm encouraging you to strategically communicate with your community and prepare them so that when spontaneous change is necessary, you're ready.